Good afternoon. We enter the 21st episode of Blockspeak. We've now done 20. We published John McAfee today, who revealed exclusively revealed where he's been holding out during COVID, and that's in Minsk, Belarus. I think he might be on the move in a couple of weeks. So that was a very good interview. And then the week after that, we've got Roger Ver, sorry, what did I call him John for? The Bitcoin Jesus. So that was great. So today we have something completely different, as Monty Python used to say. We have someone in an anonymous mask, looking like he's fresh from the film set of V for Vendetta. His name, allegedly, is John Cantrell. And this guy is very interesting. I've only just met him, so this interview could go anywhere. So, John, welcome to Blockspeak. You look like you're very safe and anonymous. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's correct. Hey, so happy to be here.
Excellent. So John Cantrell, is that the name of somebody as a pseudonym? It rings a bell. John Cantrell. Is it like someone from a movie?
Yeah, not quite. Hopefully they'll make a movie someday, but it's actually a character in one of Neil Stephenson's books called Cryptonomicon. And when I decided to create a pseudonym, I looked to one of my favorite books to pick a character. And he's some guy he's a cryptographer, a software engineer in the story. And I thought it was as good as any name to go with.
Absolutely. Have they made it into a movie yet? Have they asked you to star in it?
Yeah, I wish. No, I haven't seen any movie talks. It's kind of an older book at this point, so I don't know if it's past its prime for turning into a movie.
Just remind my audience or me, it's Neil Stephenson, and the name of the book is Cryptonomicon. Yeah, go read it. Cryptonomicon, and it's easy to buy, right?
Yeah, go on Amazon. It's widely available. It's pretty. I thought it was a pretty popular book. But if you're in crypto, you owe it to yourself to give it a read.
Right, absolutely. I should definitely be. And what's the premise of the book? The guy is a kind of libertine or a libertarian. What does he do? Is he a hero?
I don't want to give too much away for the people who haven't read it yet. But okay. Yeah, you could call him that.
No spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers on this podcast.
No, well, it's very nice to meet you, mate. Well, how does the technology work that you're using to disguise your voice? That's quite interesting. Is that easy done?
Yeah, the voice is easy. There's a lot of options for that. I've actually just switched computers. I'm on a Windows machine now. Shockingly, don't tell anyone. But there's software. You just search for a voice modulator, or even the built-in software can kind of change the pitch and add distortion. It's the video that's a lot harder, and so right now I won't go into too much detail, but it's basically like it's similar to like the snap filters and things like that you see on Snapchat. When people add tongues and dog ears to their face and things like that. So it's the same technology as that.
So it's a kind of AR layer over actually. So that thing that's coming down the screen is part of the technology, right?
Yeah, basically it takes control of your webcam and just passes it through this app that can add a layer basically on top, right? And then pushes it out as a device that you can pick when you join Zoom calls or Google Hangouts or whatever.
I'll tell you what, mate, it's pretty cool. I'll give you that. Do you know what I mean? So can I ask you that if someone did know who you were, not John Cantrell, obviously, would you be in trouble? Would someone be coming after you?
No. I'm not hiding from anyone. I just think if Bitcoin's going where we think it's going, a lot of people who are public figures in the space might want to watch out. I don't know. You're putting his target on your back, saying that you were involved so early in something that could become so valuable in the future. So I'm just taking precautions. I don't want to have. I'm not like trying to hide completely. I mean, it looks like I am, but I just don't want obvious, easy ways to find me.
No, absolutely. I remember interviewing John McAfee in Malta a couple of years ago, and the guy from Skycoin was on there who lived in Shanghai. And I remember John McAfee being absolutely disgusted that he didn't have a security detail. And he'd been beaten up, and he and his wife had been beaten up as well. And I think you're probably right to do so. Do you know what I mean? Especially when people don't understand Bitcoin. There was a case here in the UK around the same time and I think I told McAfee that on stage, is that these people knew that this guy was rich in Bitcoin, and they literally thought they could come to his house and pick up physical Bitcoins and take them away. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's the risk. I mean, when you're someone like John McAfee, though, who's got the resources and the lifestyle where he's willing to just be on the run all the time and have tons of guns and people with him, that's one option. But a lot of people don't want to live like that. So if you want to stay at your house and keep a low profile, then I think this is a good way to do it.
No, I think it's a very good way to do it. And it gives you an extra allure of kind of mystery as well. Do you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why not? Sure.
So without mentioning your real name and where you are, give us some background. We're going to go deeper into your activities and all that stuff. But give us a background of where you came from. Were you early into Bitcoin? You were an engineer?
Yeah, so I've been a software engineer, writing software, since I was 10 years old. It's kind of something I've always been into and still am very much into. And so I've also always been. I never really worked at a large company. I've always done startups, just a couple people, started a few companies myself in the Bitcoin space. A lot of people actually know me. It's kind of funny. I talk to people, I'm like, you actually know me in real life, but you don't know who I am on the internet. And so, I've been in Bitcoin since early 2013 and never left. Can't stop. Plan to spend the rest of my life working on it.
Did you ever make a decent exit with any of your startups? Did you do well out of it, or?
Yeah, one startup which actually ended up not being related to Bitcoin, since it seems like that's the only way you can make money these days. But yeah, had a decent enough exit where I can kind of focus on Bitcoin both for most of my time without worrying too much about an income.
Oh, well, that's the life I want to lead. I'm telling you, I used to work in the mobile space, and we were offered Angry Birds. We offered 51% share of Angry Birds, and we turned it down.
Whoops.
So yeah, well, you're talking to the world's biggest loser. But then again, I think it's quite good being a loser. I'd have probably died at that time. We were having quite a good time, if you know what I mean. But listen, congratulations on the exit, and congratulations on fooling a lot of people. Do you go to conferences, and are you visible in that respect?
I used to, yeah. This is all before I came up with the moniker or pseudonym. I used to go to all the conferences in 2013 and things like that, but these days they're not so interesting to me. Like, it's just the same. I think it's more interesting for people new to the scene or trying to learn. Like, once you've been in it for a while, it's kind of the same old story. I'm more interested in some of like the dev talks and the Bitcoin core reviews and the more technical side of things these days.
Yeah.
I've kind of got a pretty good grasp, or at least I think it's there's always more to learn when it comes to Bitcoin. But like the general purpose, like CoinDesk conference or whatever it's called, I'm not interested in that stuff.
Would you go to DEF CON? Would that be more like your conference?
Yeah, I've never been. That does seem like it should be up my alley. Yeah, maybe I'll check it out someday if we ever have conferences again. Yeah.
So yeah, well, I mean, tell my income about that. I've done about 200 global events, and it was all going quite swimmingly. Do you know what I mean? An MC gig with Kim Kardashian at the end of last year, then suddenly zero. Now everything's for free. Everything. You know what I mean?
Everything's frozen up. Yeah.
It's like going back 10 years and something that's good for your profile. I mean, Jesus Christ, my profile's fine. Thank you very much. But anyway, we've all got sub stories, right? Maybe I've got more than many.
No, maybe not.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit more? And I mean, we have a generally crypto savvy audience, but we go high, right? We don't go low.
Yep.
And one of the things that we like to do when we go high is to admit that we don't know some things that maybe lots of people do know. So we know about, most people here would know about the blockchain and the Lightning Network. Can you tell us about your involvement in it and try and give us a kind of, a roundup of what it actually means and why you did get involved?
Yeah, well, I think anyone who's in Bitcoin long enough, you realize that the base layer isn't really going to scale. Like, it's sort of just an accepted fact. Like, we can continue to optimize it. Of course, there's always going to be ways we can squeeze more transactions in a block and all this, but it's sort of, if we want to have a system that the average user can can download and verify their own blocks and verify their transactions in those blocks, then it needs to maintain a certain size so that the bandwidth and CPU requirements can be met by an average person. And so with that constraint in place, there really is only so many transactions that can fit on the base layer. And so that's where things like the Lightning Network come in, and it's kind of offering an option to kind of transact in a different security model, but it's still in a way that's essentially trustless. You're not trusting a third party. There's no one that can censor you. And you're able to kind of create these channels, which is basically a smart contract or 2 of 2 multi-sig with you and someone else, where you can kind of transact off-chain. And so you can pass back and forth updates to a transaction and do this, millions of times potentially, with never having to go back onto chain unless someone's trying to cheat you or you guys are done doing business and you'd like to settle out. And so that's sort of at the high level, that's sort of like the reason to be for the Lightning Network is we need a way to do more transactions with the limited capacity that Bitcoin's layer 1 offers us.
We had Roger Ver on the show he hasn't been published yet. We kind of, we publish usually after a week. It takes so long to render and all that. So Roger's obviously a big adherent of Bitcoin Cash, even though apparently he didn't set it up. He told us someone else did. How would that work? Just look at me as an idiot.
Yep.
So how would that work with Bitcoin? With Bitcoin Cash, could the Lightning Network work with that as well?
In theory it can't, but in theory it could, but today's Bitcoin Cash, it cannot. And so, and they don't want it. And if you were around in, 2014, 15, 16, who knows, there's this huge scaling debate, right? So as we reached capacity on the layer 1, there was kind of 2 camps of people, 2 camps of thought. Some people thought that Bitcoin was meant to scale to billions of people on the main chain, layer 1, and everyone's supposed to be able to get their coffee transactions settled on the chain. And those people decided to go ahead, and eventually they didn't get their way, and so they split off and created Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin whatever, all these forks of the original Bitcoin. And their mindset was that we're just going to increase the block size on the layer 1 so that we can fit, essentially as many transactions as we need on layer 1. And so that is an option, but what I don't really know, it sort of loses the main purpose of Bitcoin, in my opinion. So, in a lot of people's opinion, and sort of the majority stakeholder in Bitcoin's opinion, is that the main purpose of Bitcoin is to separate money from the state, money from third parties. And so you want to be able to have a censorship-resistant money where your transactions can't be censored. And that to be able to do that, it means you have to be able to verify your transactions yourself. You can't rely on a third party. And so if you go down the path that Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV are doing, where we're saying we're just going to keep increasing the block size to meet the demand, so that all 7-8 billion people on this planet can settle transactions on layer 1, you quickly realize, if you do some math, that you can't run. You're not going to be able to run one of these nodes on your home computer. Like, normal people aren't going to be able to run a node. And so if you do that, you're going to end up in the long run with a scenario where you're going to be back to where we are today. You're going to have a handful of essentially central banks or governments that have the resources to run these nodes, and the common people are going to have to, ask them to use the system. And that's exactly the system we're trying to get away from. And so it doesn't seem like a great solution, and the market is sort of validating that. Those forks only represent a small single-digit percentage of both the hash power and market cap of Bitcoin. And so it's kind of
It's very interesting. They opened my local pub about 2 weeks ago. There were a lot of very happy people. So it's a very good sports pub, next to the railway station. Guy who runs it's called the Hassocks Hotel. It's amazing. And one of the guys there is the manager is ex-military. Rob, hello Rob, your dreams come true. And he was trying to explain pretty much from an aggressive stance about Bitcoin. I mean, I've watched a couple of your shows, but what the fuck is it? Do you know what I mean? And I thought I'd been put on the spot like that for a while. Do you know what I mean? And try to emphasize the decentralized element of it, or the decentralized core of it. And what the original philosophy was to make it easier for the common man to make transactions without paying the man these ridiculous charges for changing your money up when you're abroad, or you know, I mean, that's what I always figured it was. And I questioned myself afterwards and thought, is it still like that? Is it really, when kind of the hedge funds are digging into Bitcoin? I think everyone is holding on to dear life, and I think there's, for me actually, I mean, you know better than me, but there's been a feeling for me over the last week or so is that we are just getting ready for liftoff here. You know what I mean? People's kind of fears over COVID, punching trillions of dollars into the US system and all that stuff. And I suppose I just want, I mean, you're not a 2010 guy. You're kind of, you came in a little bit later.
The next wave.
Yeah, the next wave. Yeah, the second wave, which we're all terrified of, by the way. Where do you think it stands on a philosophical point at the moment, Bitcoin, as opposed to crypto? Do you think it still represents those high ideals, or have all these shifts and halvings and all these kind of changes and pivots and all of that, have they changed the nature of what it was in the first place? Is it now becoming mainstream?
Yeah, it's a surely hot question. I think it depends on, you know, who you like. This is sort of, I don't know, a weird way to say it, but it's sort of up to each person to decide what Bitcoin is for them, or why they're interested in using it, or why they might want to get some. And so I think the majority of people are in it because they see it as a get rich quick scheme, which, you know, is a great way, I guess, to get people in and interested. And I think once you have some money in it, you know, maybe that will hopefully get people to start actually learning more about it. And I think as you learn more about it and you get in deeper and deeper, and it's sort of this rabbit hole that you never escape. And so I don't really mind if the main reason people are getting in initially is because they're like, oh man, in 2017 Bitcoin 20x'd, and so looks like it's going to happen again. You know, that's fine. I don't think it's a great, like, those type of people, that rationale isn't going to create like a long-term holder, or they don't really understand why they're doing it other than they hope to get rich. But I think as you educate yourself, and I think you your incentives become aligned to educating yourself once you do have some skin in the game and you did make that initial investment, even if it was for the wrong reasons. And once you kind of learn more about it and the ecosystem around it and the ethos behind it, it's really hard, especially given the current state of the world, you know, with all the inflation and, you know, just unrest in the public, and the power grabs by the government, all this, you know, overstepping from social media platforms. We're just seeing all sorts of things unfolding where it's all like the stars are really just aligning. It's really amazing to see, like back in 2013, and I'm sure even the older Bitcoiners than me, like, this is sort of like our dream. I mean, it sucks because it sucks in one way that like our dream is that the world collapses, but like, you know, unfortunately, I think there's going to be some pain as we transition out of the sort of the, you know, traditional or old system as we transition to a new one. It's not going to be a painless transition, but it feels like we're, you know, everything's aligning for some sort of transition to actually happen. And so that's sort of exciting.
Yeah, well, I suppose it depends where it goes either way. I mean, I've been reading a lot about global warming and, you know, Siberian forests on fire at 38 degrees. I mean, there seems to be a kind of click there as well. Do you know what I mean? That, you know, if you set fire to forests to melt ice caps, pathogens have to land on someone. They land on humans, and now we've got COVID. I mean, it's fucking obvious, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And if people don't wake up to that, but I think you're right. I think there is, to have revolutions, you have to have disruption. You can't have coups. So Bitcoin just is the same, as you said, so rightly so. That Bitcoin just becomes, you know, the dollar or sterling, and it just carries on the same way that it used to do before. And then we have altcoins that are worth nothing, like the kind of Somaliland shilling, or, you know, the Zimbabwean. Actually, I think it's the pound. I'm not sure. Do you know what I mean? No, I quite agree with you. You sound like a very reasonable revolutionary, if you ask me. No one wants the world to go to shit, but if it's based on the shit system, be it money or be it kind of against people who aren't white. Do you know what I mean? It's not surprising that it was going to fall down at one stage. I just hope it doesn't bring me down with it. You know what I mean? I'm not getting any younger, John.
That's me either. But I think it's sort of an age-old story potentially. Like the separation, the sort of like wealth inequality, power inequality. These inequalities create social unrest naturally, and so. But with that said, I think Bitcoin is sort of more of a peaceful protest, peaceful resolution. Like, we're not waging war. We're just saying, hey, look, there's a way to opt out of this broken system. Come join us. And I think, every day more and more people are waking up to that idea.
No, that would be of great happiness to me and optimism. I've just read this book by a Dutch guy called Rutger Bregman, and it's called Humankind. And it's based on the premise that humans are kind, that we're not like a veneer of like, you take 6 meals away from us, we're going to eat someone next door, and and goes through all the tropes of stories about the Stanford experiment, about the guards and the prisoners was all a load of bullshit, and all of these things. That it does amazing research into it and says, well, basically we're all pretty communist. You know what I mean? If you came up to me in the street, John, with that mask on or without that mask on, and you ask me for directions, you know what I mean? And I say, yeah, mate, it's like 3 down, go there, down there, 3 down, right, turn right, welcome to London. That's a communist act. If we're sitting opposite each other at a dinner table, I say, can you pass me the salt? You don't say, give me fucking $5, or I'm not giving you the salt. You give me the salt. So it's very interesting in the fact that we were always nomadic and always quite kind and collaborative. The fascist in the tribe was generally kicked out of the tribe for ruining the tribe. And all of this kind of kicked off in 2 respects. Once when we stopped moving and we started our agriculture and owned things and wanted to defend them, that was the first way that we became motherfuckers. And the second way was when a big state got involved, and then the state mirrored the fascism of the person that was, power corrupts and all that stuff. And I found it very, very, very soothing in these times of plague to read that maybe I'm not a savage, that I'm actually quite a nice bloke, and I do quite nice things all the time, and you do, and we all do. And so maybe if Bitcoin could be part of that decentralized movement, it is peaceful, and it's probably going to be a lot more peaceful than the shit that's going to happen in the next 12, 18 months around the world. Do you know what I mean? We are heading to
for sure.
Anyway,
it does seem like that.
Apart from my COD philosophy, one of the things that I've spoken at conferences is the kind of Bitcoin has never been hacked. Exchanges have been hacked. I mean, I lost some Ethereum. I was hacked about 2 years ago for about 30 grand. That was a very frustrating process. But I believe that you may have hacked Bitcoin yourself. Is that true? And how did you do it?
No, that is not true. Let's not start spreading those rumors. But yeah, a lot of people, journalists
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. These are part of my notes.
No. Well, I didn't hack Bitcoin. I was able to get access to a Bitcoin through a method of brute forcing someone's private keys. And so the only way that was possible was that this guy, Alistair, was holding a giveaway essentially where he was going to give out small pieces of his private key every couple of days for a month. And by the end of it, if you gathered all the pieces, you would have the entire private key, which would then be able to sign a transaction and take his Bitcoin.
Why would he do that?
Well, because he was trying to basically buy more followers. So he was saying, follow me. And if you follow all my social media accounts, I'll leak, some of the clues to my private keys on social media. And so it was sort of an attempt for him to just get more followers. And in the end, it didn't really work for him. And his followers probably got upset because someone like me came in and was able to take it before he was able to finish his contest.
So it was basically a PR marketing campaign based on a kind of form of treasure hunt, like when some crazy people put stuff in the Rocky Mountains and you find it 4 years later, all that.
Yes.
But how come you managed to work it out before he came to the end of that process?
Right. So that was the more interesting part. So how it worked was, I'm not sure how familiar you and your audience is with how some of the wallets work in terms of generating your private keys, but usually a lot of these wallets will do something, they'll use something called a mnemonic. And so when you first set up your wallet, it's going to give you a 12 or 24 set of words. that you're supposed to write down and keep very safe. And you can use these words to generate, to restore your private key and get back access to your coins. And so what he was going to do was slowly release one of those words per day. Okay. And so there was 12 words in total. And so he thought by the time he got to the 9th or 10th word that someone would be able to brute force it. And I thought, sorry about that.
That's not really a baby, is it? That's just you putting people up about who you are. John Cantrell does not have children. This is just a way.
Yeah. Some random sound effects come again. Soon you will hear a bird chirping.
Your Zoom is fucking awesome, bro.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Sorry about that.
Give us a bit of humanity.
Yeah. So basically, he was going to give away one word every couple of days for a month. And I wrote some software that was able to use a pool of graphics cards to kind of iterate through 1 trillion different possible combinations to guess the last 4 words before he released them publicly. And so I was able to get access to the full 12 words before he even released the 9th word. And so that's kind of what happened there.
Was that easy? Or just like brutal?
Not really. I hadn't really done anything like that before, so it was a little bit of a learning experience for me. I had to dig into a new programming language that's like really fast. I needed to learn how to program graphics cards, which is something that Bitcoin miners use to do mining really well. In the early days, they did at least. And so it was sort of mostly like a learning experience for me, and I thought that I could do it. And, I mean, the 1 Bitcoin was a nice prize, but I wasn't really so sure I was going to be able to do it first. I figured other people out there smarter than me were also doing it, but apparently not. And so, yeah, it was a lot. It took about a little over a week and a half to write this software that was able to iterate through these keys. But it was a really cool learning experience, at least for me.
Well, congratulations for winning almost $10,000. That'll pay for some baby food. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some diapers. Yeah, for sure.
My son is 17, and he's gone off on a holiday with my wife today to the southwest of England. So I've got my house to myself for a month.
Nice, peace and quiet.
A week. I'm going straight down the pub after this to watch the football.
There you go.
Oh God, no dogs, no kids. I mean, I love my family, but you know what I mean. One of the things I did want to ask you about, because I'm not particularly au fait with it, is the Juggernaut project. Could you tell me and the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a cool idea. So basically, we were talking about before, the Lightning Network was originally established as a way to scale Bitcoin, right? Because if we don't increase the block size, then you can only fit a small number of transactions on the base layer. And so we created the Lightning Network as a way to do peer-to-peer payments much faster and much cheaper. And so one interesting thing is when you send a payment over the Lightning Network, you're able to attach a small piece of data to it. Okay, so I can send you $1 or a penny and say, I think one common use case be to say like a memo on a payment, like this is for, or like on a check, right? This was for May's rent, or this was for the green book, or I wanted the large green shirt, whatever it might be, just some random piece of data. And so what Juggernaut does is it takes advantage of that fact and uses it to store messaging data. So I built a app that looks a lot like Telegram or any other of the desktop messaging apps that you might be familiar with. But every time you want to send a message to someone, it is actually sending them 1 Satoshi, so 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. And along with that Satoshi, it's sending the message that you typed in. So if you said like, hey, how's it going? I would attach that message to the payment, send them the payment over the Lightning Network, and then their wallet would receive that payment and parse out the message and then show it on the screen. And so each message is kind of bouncing back and forth the Satoshi. And so it's a way to do peer-to-peer encrypted, censorship-resistant messaging by utilizing the Lightning Network payment system.
So every time you send a Satoshi, which is 100 million for Bitcoin, you're almost creating like I suppose something like Signal that would be on a phone. It's a kind of safe, encrypted messaging network that's censor-free.
Yeah, because it's built on top of an already decentralized, censorship-resistant system. And to me, that's one of the main benefits of that idea is like a lot of these altcoins and other crypto projects and even just other like Telegram and Signal and crypto messengers have this problem where you can build amazing technology, but you have to convince, tens of thousands, if not more, of people to run your network. Otherwise, is it really decentralized, or is it just you and your buddies running it? And so I think it's really important for people to realize that they can avoid that whole problem by building on top of an already existent network like Bitcoin. And so I think the like Bitcoin is sort of this once in a lifetime opportunity that it kind of all came together and was released and got bootstrapped and has grown to the size it has. And so we have this base layer that is, relative, it could always be better, but, there's tens of thousands of these nodes running already to support Bitcoin. And so if you can bootstrap on top of that, you don't have to worry about building your own network. You can just use Bitcoins. And so I think that's a really important concept that people building these like layer 3 systems or just apps on top of it need to consider before they go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to go make my own coin. It's like you probably don't need to.
No, I mean that could go up. That could go anywhere, isn't it? It could start off as that and then become secure messaging network that we're all looking for. I mean, there was a big thing in the UK press this year. I can't remember the name of the network, but it was a super encrypted network where drug dealers were using it. But basically, the UK police have hacked it, and so many people have been arrested. It's like the biggest thing. It's like intercepting 20 boats full of cocaine. Do you know what I mean? It's like the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with Roger Veer last week that we were talking about. Where can you actually, have a good chat with someone, and maybe on a more public domain. We used to like Twitter, we used to like Facebook, LinkedIn's, whatever. But that sounds very interesting. Hey man, listen, apart from the fact that you're hypnotizing me with your face and this line that comes down the screen, and my evening is completely screwed up now because I'm going to see your face everywhere I go. This has been a fascinating conversation for me, and I think our audience are going to like it. We'd just like to finish with a couple of stupid questions. Is that all right? Do you have a favorite altcoin? Is there anything that's getting you going of late?
Oh man. Honestly, no, I don't pay attention to any of that. I think it's a total waste of time, total distraction. Bitcoin and Lightning Network have enough work to do. It's not worth it.
All right. And Bitcoin's price, like me, you think it's ready to go boing?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's... you're an idiot if you try to make a price prediction, but it certainly feels like we're coiling up for a big move, and the whole world is, we couldn't have asked for better narratives right now, and so, I'm really surprised if we don't get a big move in the next 18 months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, John Cantrell, thanks for the book recommendation. I've really enjoyed your company. You're very concise in the way you explain things. That implies to me great intelligence, because it's a little bit like, go back to directions. If someone says, "Excuse me, do you know how I can get there?" I mean, these are the days before kind of apps, and then someone gives you instructions, and you think, "There's no fucking way am I going to get there with those shit instructions. You're stupid." And then when someone else gives you directions that is clear, you're going to be there in 10 minutes' time. That's what I perceive intelligence to be. The way that you've kind of guided us through this conversation implies to me that you're a very smart man. I hope you don't get found out by the unique screams of your child and all that stuff. I think it's amazing that you've got someone with an anonymous mask in a Zoom call covering everything else, and a baby comes in.
It kind of kills the image of it.
Yes, like so.
I am a human.
Change your nappy.
1 second, I'll be right back.
Yeah. So obviously you put a smile on my face, mate. You've been a great guest. Let's stay in touch, and thank you so much for your time. Good luck with the breastfeeding, or you might be a woman. That's
be a woman.
Clever. You put me. You see, she wants some money. Yeah, you're a smart guy. Yeah. All right, John. Listen, we'll let you know when we publish. If you could kind of retweet or something like that, it'd be great. You don't have to. That's up to you. But I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I'd love to speak to you again. That would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep you updated when I have some big announcements in the future.
All right. So, okay, audience, thank you for joining us again. As I said, I'm going down the pub. It's Friday. I've got a couple of days of my own. Big weekend for my football team. Might get into the Premiership. Very excited. Hopefully, you're not too hypnotised by John's Zoom's weirdness and face and all that stuff, because I do feel a bit weird. But thanks again to John. We'll see you next week. We've got a couple more amazing guests, but we'll let you know through our social channels. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend and see you next week. Bye-bye.